where we are going to be entertained and informed.
No pressure.
No, there's none. By our colleagues from San Francisco City College. We have with us Alisa Messer, who grew up in San Francisco and was pretty clear that she had not won the jackpot, or had won the jackpot after several years of freeway flying at various California colleges. She landed a part-time and later a full-time job, tenure track yet, at City College of San Francisco. She was elected president of AFT 2121 in 2010. She currently serves as a vice president of the California Federation of Teachers and is vice president for political affairs at the San Francisco Labor Council, and she continues to find both inspiration and solace in being and learning in the classroom with CCSF students. Also with us, we have Tim Kilikelly, who is a member of the executive board of AFT 2121. He has taught political science at City College of San Francisco since 1997. He received his PhD in political science from CUNY Graduate Center in 1996. Whoa. And he has been active in a variety of social justice movements, particularly focusing on access to the right to vote and the mobilization of underrepresented groups in elections. We're going to be educated for a half an hour, and then we will have time to ask questions, and welcome.
And I feel like, given the room we're in, I probably made the mistake of not saying that I was that my graduate degree is from SUNY Buffalo.
Yay!
Covered all the bases.
So hi folks, thank you so much for having us tonight. We appreciate being here and being in a room full of people who are concerned about so many of the same things we are and fighting the same fights. And though there isn't a version of this story that I can tell you in half an hour or part of half an hour that will cover everything, right? Tim and I will be here this weekend, and we will answer all the questions you have, and there will still be much left over. So there are many ways to cut this narrative or to sort of slice this narrative. We could talk about it in terms of real estate in San Francisco. We could talk about it in terms of the privatizers. We could talk about it in terms of for-profit institutions and neoliberalism and so many other pieces. And we also have to talk about it in terms of a really bizarre situation with an accreditor who has really gone wild, and all of these things, and many more are a confluence at City College of San Francisco and for San Franciscans and the students there right now. So we're going to try to give you some picture of that, but we also want to give you some picture of, since we're in the room with unionists and with organizers, of what it has meant at AFT 2121, which used to have, when this all started, when I started as president, we had about, in 2010, a little, for a couple of years there, we had about 1,850 faculty. We're now down to 1,500 faculty. That's full and part-time, right? So we're a college that's in crisis and a union local that is, by necessity, in crisis. So we have been, actually, it was Joe Barry who said to me recently, we have been building the car while we've been driving it as we've tried to put together a campaign. And just one of the conversations that's happened among our members and with many folks in the community in the last year or two is people have been looking to Chicago, which has been such an inspiration, and what the Chicago Teachers Union has done is such an inspiration in terms of the organizing and the outreach to the community and all of those pieces. And our faculty looked to us and said, well, why aren't we just doing that? And part of the answer was, well, they spent a couple of years getting that up and off the ground, and we were building it at the same time, because we had a local that, while I would call it in many ways an activist local, we would show up for things, we would do things. We were not an organizing local. So we were not organized and we were not organizing. And we've really been moving from a service model with some elements of activism and history that we were very proud of to an organizing model. So Tim, in a couple of minutes, is going to tell you some of that perspective from the inside out, because he's been one of the champions and the superheroes of our member organizing committee, really in the last 6 or 8 months, as that committee has finally taken off and done amazing work. as we've tried to get it going. I am going to first give you a little bit of context of the City College story and the accreditation crisis that we're in. And can I just ask, how many people have read or heard something, maybe more than a sentence, about what's been happening at City College of San Francisco? Okay, so that puts us in good stead. And if so I'm going to try to hit on some pieces, but not everything in terms of City College of San Francisco. Let me just start by telling you that right now we are still accredited, but the accreditors, the ACCJC, they are now a household acronym in San Francisco. It just rolls off the tongue, and I bet most people in this room can't say it 3 times fast, but we all can. Right? The ACCJC has determined that we will lose our accreditation as of July of this year. They made that announcement July last year, and of course we aim to stop that and to have a college and to have an accredited college for our students in San Francisco and for all of San Francisco. But we also have at the moment a number of processes going forward, and one of them is, and many of you may have heard, that in early January, because we took the accreditors to court, the City Attorney of San Francisco, and also our local AFT 2121 in partnership with our statewide organization, the California Federation of Teachers, took them to court. We had a case going forward, and we moved for an injunction. And so on July 2nd, the judge ordered that injunction, which means that they cannot shut down the college. They cannot, January 2nd. They cannot disaccredit the college until the lawsuits are complete. And in the process of doing that, right, they've given us an incredible amount of hope, and the students of San Francisco, of City College of San Francisco, an incredible amount of hope. So that's a major victory for us and a very big deal, because it says that there's an outside party that's really looking at what the accreditors have done and everything that they've done wrong, something we've been working for 1.5 years to expose. But a judge has now looked at this and said, looks like you're probably going to get somewhere on this court case, so no, you can't move forward until we finish this court case. So that's some of what's happening right now, although it's not the whole picture, definitely. So I want to back up for just a moment and give you some context of both local and then, sort of speak to some of the statewide context, which will not be unfamiliar because it's also a national context. City College of San Francisco, several years ago at any rate, we're down a lot, but several years ago we had about 100,000 students. There have been polls done, more than most of San Francisco either has a family member or has directly accessed City College of San Francisco at some point. So we're deeply embedded in the community. We have 11 campuses. We do all kinds of work. We train immigrants in English through non-credit classes. We do what's usually called in California adult basic ed, so we train folks for, help them get their GEDs, all kinds of free non-credit classes that help community members, citizenship classes, other work. We do an enormous amount of workforce training through various kinds of partnerships and also through the college, including some amazing labor partnership trainings and internships. We also, of course, do the work of basic skills and of transfer and of helping many students move on into higher education, and it's an opportunity. And in California, the community colleges, about 25 years ago they were free, which is real open access education, they are $46 a unit now. So they're still the lowest in the country, but that is up from $25 a unit, I believe, 3 years ago. Is that right? Right, so we've seen some tremendous changes. So about 100,000 students that we used to have, we're down a little under 80 at this point. A lot of people losing access. We also, AFT 2121, as I mentioned, had about a little more than 1,800 faculty. We have had a history of being particularly strong on contingent faculty rights. And so we have what has become a model of one of the better, arguably one of the best part-time faculty contracts for part-time faculty in the country. And that has been over a period of time, and it's something we're very proud of, but it's been a really, that's a 30-year process with, if you work at least half time, you get full health benefits year-round, 86% pro rata pay, So we're not at 100 yet, that's always been the goal, but 86% pro rata pay, not perfect, but strong preference and reemployment rights, a number of things that we're very proud of. And part of that picture has also been, we did that very clearly stating that if we could stop the exploitation of part-time faculty, we would have more full-time faculty. And it worked. So we have one of the highest cores of full-time faculty in California community colleges. We're well above the state. The state does have some very poor regulations to try to keep the core of full-time faculty up, more than in other parts of the country. But we're well above. We have a large core of full-time faculty, and then a large continuing core of part-time faculty who are treated, and having been a freeway flyer in other places, much better. It's not perfect, but much better than other places, something we've been truly proud of. We also have equity between our non-credit and our credit instructors, which may or may not make sense in other contexts, but in many other places, non-credit instructors are paid significantly less, and we have a much more equitable system that we're also really proud of. So in those contexts, that's just a little bit about our contract and how we have sort of understood our history as a union local. We've also had, for about 15 years, pretty good relations with the district. We went to interest-based bargaining or something that looks like it. It's been a long time since we've done really any organizing at all. We've gotten pretty comfortable in terms of our relationship with the district. And so that's been over, as things have changed and we've had a perfect storm at City College of San Francisco, that's been really why we've had to rebuild, build the car while it's driving. It's been a big part of what we've been doing. At the same time, statewide, we of course had a huge fiscal crisis. Because of that fiscal crisis, there were reductions in classes throughout the California community colleges. Fees went up. We pushed statewide pushed almost 500,000 students, ejected about 500,000 students from the California community college system in a period of 3 years, right, during the financial crisis. And at City College of San Francisco, in a period of 3 years leading into 2012, we lost $53 million in 3 years. So, things were hard. What we did at City College of San Francisco is different than what happened in many other community colleges. Rather than making major reductions in classes, we wanted to save that access for students. We also wanted to protect jobs. And that was something that was done with the district in this rather cozy relationship that we had, right? It was sort of a shared value that everyone had. And so we made hard decisions around not hiring administrative openings. We had fewer administrators and more people on the front lines in the classroom. Right? We were proud of it, right? We also took hit after hit in temporary cuts trying to get through the crisis. So we took some small pay cuts. As I was coming in as president, the bargaining team had just agreed to a 1% cut for a year, right? There had been other pieces along the way. So it was not an easy time period, but it was also the middle of the fiscal crisis. And then, so statewide and what that looked like at City College, right? We were sort of pulling together, just hoping to get through. And one of the things we were doing, we knew was happening at the same time, is we were looking for revenue. So we were very involved with the CFT. You may have heard about the millionaire's tax that became Prop 30 that Jerry Brown gets all the credit for. We like to think in the CFT and others and labor had a lot to do with that. And then locally, we were planning a local parcel tax just for the college. So we were looking for revenue to help solve the problems. All of that was going on. And then at the same time, we had a success and completion agenda that was moving forward in the state legislature. So something called the Student Success Task Force that was set up with the community college chancellor and in the offices, looking at all kinds of completion and other ways to move so-called student success that we never felt really covered how our students succeed and all of the ways in which our students succeed when they come and they access education. So we were very vocal about some of the changes that were being made around that student completion agenda and around the Student Success Task Force in the legislation. And I mention that because it comes up again as we move through some of these other pieces. all of that, all of those pieces and many others, including an accreditor that we had known for years all over the state, had been sanctioning more and more colleges, was more and more arbitrary, and had more and more of its own ideas about what colleges should look like. We had an accreditation visit in spring of 2012, and then in July of 2012, we heard that we were put on something called show cause sanction, and that was meant that we had to prove why we should continue to be accredited. And we ostensibly had a year to do it, but really we had until March 15th to turn in a whole new report and get all these things together. We'd never been sanctioned before. Suddenly we were in dire straits. We knew that we would probably, given all of the things happening and all of the cuts and everything else, that it was very likely that there was a sanction coming down, but a sanction of that severity immediately sent us into shock, and all of San Francisco went into shock. And then we had to sort of back up and spend some time recollecting and figuring out what to do, especially given what we already knew about the accreditor, that people said that the accreditor was not trustworthy, that the accreditor was inconsistent and arbitrary, and all kinds of other things, but also that, right, there was absolutely no accountability for this accreditor, and no one had figured out what to do about it. So what I'd like to do is take a moment. I think we've got some publications for you, and in terms of this timeline of what's happening and what happened with accreditation over the last year and a half, 2 years with City College of San Francisco, rather than try to take you through all the pieces of it, we want to give you one of these, because if you open it up to the middle, you'll see this timeline that we have.
Oh, that's great.
It doesn't have everything.
That's great.
But you'll see it starts in 2012 and it goes till December 31st. And so we wanted you to have that, and I hope we have enough. Uh-oh, maybe not.
We can always zero. We'll make
So, and we do have them online,
We can share, or we can
but
go
maybe
down
you
to
can
the-
share and just take a peek.
We've got some. We've got some coming along.
Okay. 5 minutes. Okay. So we've now been through a process that has, remember, we're building the car while driving it, and we've had to go through a process of looking at the accreditors, building community support, building the internal work within our local, which, remember, was quite weak at the point that this began to happen. We've bargained a contract under very challenging circumstances, and it's not a contract any of us are thrilled with. We're happy to talk to you more about that, and there's a little information actually in this publication about it. And trying to save a college. So at the same time that all of our faculty at the college have been deeply involved with all kinds of work groups and student learning outcomes and all of the things that the accreditor wants to make sure that we do, right? People have been very involved in many aspects of that. We've also been working to save the college in a much broader sense. We now have a situation where we feel like we hope that we will have a college, and it will be clear that there is a college that is accredited moving forward, but we're also not sure what that college will look like. So we could have a college that is a quarter the size of the college we started out with, or half the size of the college we started out with. We've already lost 15,000 students, maybe more. We're looking at a hole in our budget next year of more than $20 million because of the enrollment that we're losing. It's not just the class cuts or cuts that the administration is making, it's also the incredible fear and concern that so many students have. So while we went into this looking at, right, and went through the fiscal crisis, looking at how do we save access for students, what has happened with this disaccreditation decision, the show cause and then the disaccreditation decision, and all of the really challenging press and so many things along the way that have been so challenging, including a series of interim chancellors who have not supported the faculty and frankly haven't supported the college, haven't valued the college, forgot to say for a year and a half that there was absolutely nothing in the sanctions that had to do with the quality of the education that we offered. So, right, it's only in the last couple of months that we've really been able to get traction on that message. And I'll just say, within a couple of days after the initial show cause sanction, I was on KQED radio with a number of other people on Forum, which I think is nationally broadcast. Maybe folks out here have heard KQED's Forum about this crisis. And one of the things that I said a couple of times was, none of this is about, it's about finances, it's about governance, it's about metrics, but none of this is about the quality of the education that we offer to students. And the next day, the ACCJC had a press release on their website, sort of slamming, it wasn't quite sure who was being slammed, but me, someone else, for claiming that, that there was nothing wrong with the quality of education and saying that was absolutely not true. Right? So that's been shifting, but we're still losing students because students are so, for all the reasons you can imagine, students are so frightened about the future of their education. We're losing faculty, we're losing staff, because not only have we suffered incredible cuts, we were cut last spring in our paychecks through a series of cuts that happened. We had more than 10% taken out of our paychecks all last spring. We're in slightly better shape now, right? So the fight has been on many, many levels. One of the things, but we're beginning to turn the fight around. So we have gathered incredible community support. It's already there, it's inherent. And we knew that because in 2012, in November, not long after the show cause sanction, we ran the parcel tax, and that was actually something the college wouldn't support. Labor did it. We worked very hard on it, and we brought $15.5 million a year back to the college solely for the college, with 73% support from the San Francisco electorate, which was amazing. But it didn't change anything happening on the ground for the folks at the college at all. They put all that money, as we're seeing happens everywhere else, they put it into reserves, they're putting it into deferred maintenance and technology, all of this, right? So now that maybe there's a little more room in the austerity program, all of that money goes to things and none of it goes to people. Right? But we knew we had tremendous support, and we've continued to gain that support and work to sort of move that support forward, enough so that we are now in a position where we have many of our elected leaders standing up very clearly for us. Just last week, Nancy Pelosi actually came and spoke at the college and not just spoke in favor of City College of San Francisco, which is what many of the electives have done, but actually went much farther and talked about the accreditors and the problems with the accreditors. Because until we can get more people to say, you know what, this isn't City College of San Francisco's fault, there's another problem here, it's external. It's going to be very hard, for instance, to get our elected Board of Trustees back, because the state chancellor has deposed our elected Board of Trustees. There's so many things I could tell you about, right? Most of them are jaw droppers in terms of the things that have happened to us. So getting that community support has been key, and it's not been easy. It's been confusing enough because there were problems at the college, significant problems at the college, most of them administrative, many of them fixed by the fact that we got more money into the college, but some significant problems at the college. Unfortunately, it has been such chaos for the last year and a half that many of those problems are now significantly worse than they were when we started. So we've really had an outside, unaccountable agency, and I didn't even go into that in any real detail, that has come in and helped push changes at the college that have not been good for the college, that have been terrible for the students, and that will continue to shrink a college perhaps for years to come. With some of that broad context and some of that story, it's really not all of the story, and again, we'll have some time for Q&A, and Tim and I will be here, and we're happy to answer questions about any given piece of that. Tim is going to come up and talk a little bit from the inside of the member organizing committee that we've put together and tell you about some of the lessons learned and some of how we've approached that building the car while we've been driving it and trying not to drive it off a cliff.